morning and welcome. So happy to see you all. I am Patty Green, the director of the Hormone Foundation, and we're so pleased to have you here with us for the first of 3 cooking demonstrations we'll be having today on the showcase stage. The Hormone Foundation's goal in organizing this Cooking for Pleasure and Health Day and show is to give you practical tips on recipes, diet strategies, and other motivational points of interest to share with your patients to encourage them and motivate them to eat, cook, and live more healthy. Our featured chef today is Amy Riolo. Amy is an award-winning cookbook author, a lecturer, food historian, culinary consultant, and cooking instructor. So she's a very busy lady. We're very, very pleased that she could join us for the whole day. Amy's love for cooking started when she was very young. She said when she was 3, she was already cooking. But her commitment to learning how to cook healthy started when her mom was diagnosed with diabetes. And as a teenager, Amy developed a whole series of recipes and actually put together her first cookbook on recipes for patients with diabetes as a teenager. So she's been had a long-standing commitment to trying to develop really healthy recipes that are delicious and really emphasize what patients can eat and enjoy rather than what they can't. Wonderful, positive attitude. Amy's going to conduct 3 demonstrations today. They all build one on the other. The first session for this morning is going to be learning the basics. At 1 p.m., the second session will be recipes for a healthy lifestyle. At 3 p.m., she'll pull it all together and discuss how to eat in, dine out, and live healthy. I hope you'll join us for all 3 of her presentations. In addition, the concession stand over here on my right, your left, will be selling several of Amy's delicious recipes, her strawberry smoothies, her chicken burgers on portobello mushrooms, and her sweet potato stir-fry. I hope that you'll try all 3. With that, I want to bring Amy to the stage, and we're going to get cooking. So welcome, Amy.
Good morning. Thank you all so much for coming today. It's really exciting to have you all here. So the title of today's presentation is Cooking for Pleasure and Health. And this title is an expression that I learned in Egypt a long time ago. When people go to dine, they wish themselves bon appetit. They say to enjoy the meal with pleasure and health. It's very traditional. And it got me thinking that good taste and delicious, healthy recipes don't have to be mutually exclusive. So this morning, we're going to talk about the basics, some ingredients, portion sizes, and grocery shopping, and just give everybody some tips. One of the reasons I'm so happy to be here today is I think that we have a lot of common ground. Many people tend to think that medical professionals and culinary professionals would be enemies, but there are so many things that we can do together because I believe that my students and my following and my clients also happen to be your patients. And I know that because people come into me all the time, and the first thing they tell me after they meet me and how much they love my cooking is, my doctor said, no matter what it is. And they always remember, a lot of times I think doctors get discouraged and clinicians and they say, well, we know this, we're telling our patients, but they're not really doing it. But they want to be doing it. There is a disconnect of how to put it into people's daily lives, but I know that the initial interest is there and they're really taking your advice to heart. So I think that by working together and working with dietitians and nutritionists, we can all come together and really help people enjoy more healthful lifestyles. But as Patty said, I did get started when I was very young, and when I was 15, my mom came home from the doctor with her diabetes diagnosis, and she had a prescription pad just like the one on the screen, and it had listed there all of the things that she could not eat. And that's it. And she came home and she walked in and she had this really solemn, sorrow look like she just came back from a funeral on her face. And she said, this is what I can't eat. Well, I was the family cook at the time, so I had to be responsible for getting the meals on the table. And here were all of the things that we have every night on this paper that she couldn't eat. I didn't know what to do, she didn't know what to do, and it seemed like a really horrible thing. But after a couple days, we all stopped moping around, and I said, Mom, there's a lot more foods that you can eat than what you can't eat. Let's make a list of all the things you can eat. And of course, there were thousands of things. So we took it from there. I took that list of what she could eat, and I started making a little meal plan for her based on what her nutritionist said she could eat, and I started writing recipes. And so basically, 22 years later, that's still what I'm doing. And this is how I believe we can get patients to be motivated. The first and most important thing is to make healthy food glamorous, using celebrity chefs and television personality status to elevate good food choices. This is very important, and it's something that, thanks to Food Network and Cooking TV and all of the wonderful programs out there, is becoming more and more popular. And guess what? A lot of chefs are aging, and they're starting to have more health complications, so they themselves are having to eat more healthfully. And we're going to talk in session 3 at great length about which chefs are making healthful switches and how that's going to become a new trend. So that will make our jobs much, much easier. The other thing is the internet. You know, the internet really provides millions of healthful recipes. All you have to do is Google a couple ingredients, and you can get some really wonderful recipes that are great for you. And this is something that I didn't have as a resource when I was 15, but now it's out there. And the other thing is hearing success stories. Success stories are so important. Everyone can use them, and that's why the infomercials use them. They work. So any patients that you have in your practice or examples that you know from research that you've read about can really be effective in motivating patients. I think that small actions make big impact. Giving people tools and letting them do their homework. We can provide the inspiration. You can tell them that they need to eat more healthfully for their health. I can give them good recipes, and I can tell them how to fit it into their lifestyle. But no one can go home with people and actually make them write that list of what they can eat and the things that they like to eat and poll their family. That takes a little bit more work. But I think that if we're all on the same page and we all start with that same initiative, it will be very, very easy for people to do that portion for them. Suggesting registered dietitians, certified diabetes educators, and nutritionists can also help people to come up, of course, with a proper meal plan. And then naming foods that people can eat is really good because, believe it or not, people don't really know what they can eat. And even if it's a fruit or a vegetable or a grain and it's healthful, some people might think that I heard that has starch in it. Bananas. I heard they have sugar. Sweet potatoes. I heard they have this. People have all of these weird misconceptions about basically healthful foods. So in our grab bag that we're going to have today available after the lecture over at the Endocrine Society booth, it has a little recipe packet in it. And in the recipe packet are about 16 recipes that I've put together that are very healthful. It looks like this, so you're able to take one home, but it has a lot of things in it that people might not know about, just to give some very quick kind of trigger ideas. What can I eat? Whenever the patients ask what can they eat, the basic food groups: vegetables, fruits, grains, beans, baked goods, nuts, lean meat, seafood, poultries, eggs, dairy, and yogurt. Those are the main things that people, of course, should be basing their diet on. Of the vegetables, and here's where it's really impactful, because here's when they can see so many different things that they can eat, is when you actually start to write down each and every ingredient that's available to you. Sweet potatoes, carrots, beets, broccoli, asparagus, potatoes, all of the squashes, green beans, avocados, cucumber, spinach, kale, peppers, tomatoes, watercress, cilantro, parsley, all the hundreds of herbs that are out there in the world, and then the collards, kale, and leeks. So many things. So this completely wipes out the little list of things they can't have. And fruits. I don't have to read them for you to go down the list, but of course, as you know, there are many, many different kinds. Grains. Grains are very important because people don't know about them. They're ancient, they've been around in the world for thousands of years, but in our modern society, we're very, very removed from them. We know about pastas, and we know about rice, and we know about a couple of things like that, but there are so many grains that are very inexpensive, because a lot of doctors that I work with tell me the patients always complain about the price. So these are inexpensive ways of really getting a lot of bang for your buck. And in session 2, we're going to work with some of the grains, but for right now, I'll just name them off and talk a little bit about them. Whole wheat, of course, quinoa, brown rice, amaranth, millet, wild rice, black rice, kamut, teff, oats, buckwheat, kashi, barley, corn, rye, farro, and muesli. So wonderful things people should always have in their pantry, inexpensive, they last indefinitely, and you can go to them on a daily basis for cereal, for side dishes, and for great vegetarian mains. A lot of these grains, especially like the quinoa, are nutritional powerhouses. Quinoa possesses all of the amino acids necessary to make a complete protein, just in that one little ingredient. The Incas used to call it the mother of all grains. It's cheap, it's easy to work with. There's no reason why it can't be in every single person's house. But, for marketing reasons and for other reasons, it's not a household name yet, but we can help to make it one. Amaranth is a really other very powerful grain. Millet, very inexpensive, very old, things that we can have on hand. Teff is an Ethiopian grain. It's been around for thousands of years. In session 3, we've got an Ethiopian recipe that I'm going to demo that I did with school children. I'm going to prove to everybody that kids will eat kale and collard greens if you make it fun. But teff makes the traditional injera bread, which is an Ethiopian bread. If you go to any Ethiopian restaurant and they have that wonderful round bread, it looks like a pizza, but it's brown and it has holes in it like a sponge, that's made with teff flour. And teff is full of protein, and teff is available right at Whole Foods and other health food stores. You can get it anywhere. You don't have to go to Addis Ababa for it. And it's a wonderful thing. You're going to see it more and more as we go into gluten-free diets and things like that. Kamut. Kamut is an ancient grain that goes by its native name in hieroglyphics that an American farmer from the Midwest found in Egypt, brought back, and started harvesting it here. Now he's done tons of medical studies and found how efficient it is. So they make puffed cereal, like rice puffed cereal, but they make it out of kamut, breads out of kamut, many different things. Farro is an Italian grain. Farro in Italian actually means wheat, but this is a specific type of wheat. It's an ancient grain that's very healthful also. Beans. Beans are also very, very important. It's something, beans aren't glamorous. Nobody looks forward to eating beans. Nobody talks about eating beans, but they're really good. And they're the staple along with those grains in many places in the world. They're inexpensive. They're great sources of protein and healthy carbohydrates. So people should be integrating these into their diets every single day. And in the recipe booklet, we have a lot of great ideas how to. Online, there are many, many more. My website has hundreds of recipes, and you're welcome to view any of those. But the beans are a great thing that people should be integrating little by little. They're easy add-ins into soup, into pasta dishes, into salads, into things that we're eating anyway. Very nutritious and very inexpensive. And just like I mentioned, some of the chefs are going through and adding some of the glamour to the image of a lot of the foods. One of the things they're doing this for are beans. I just was watching the Italian news on Saturday, and there is the municipality of Syracuse, which is in Sicily, actually just started an initiative to make beans and legumes become more en vogue. So the European Commission recognizes this as something that's important, and pretty soon probably we will too. Very, very easy way to get more healthful ingredients into our diet. The next ingredient thing is baked goods. A lot of people, when they're trying to eat more healthfully, this is the hard thing. You want baked goods, you want to have some kind of traditions in your family, you want things that taste good and very homey foods. You can still have them, you just have to switch the way that you're making them. And the healthful grains and the healthful sweeteners like honey and agave nectar make it easy for us to do that. And this book is just good to the grain. It's one of the examples of how to cook with whole grain flours. People who have gluten intolerances, I highly recommend, and everybody, that they learn how to bake because it's very simple, it's very easy. You have a fun household activity. I know a lot of times people mention time and not having time to do things, but once a month, instead of maybe going to a movie or playing a video game or doing something else, people could bake bread together, and it's really fun, it's inexpensive, and it helps you to have a great diet throughout the rest of the month. Nuts are another great addition because they're rich in healthy fats, calcium, magnesium, zinc, vitamin E, and a lot of other nutritious ingredients. Things like almonds, walnuts, filberts, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, and cashews can always be kept on hand. They're great and easy to transport. And I'm going to talk a lot today about people thinking ahead. Thinking ahead is so important. A lot of people say, how do you stay thin when you're always thinking about food? And I tell them that's how I stay thin, because I'm always thinking about food. Really, people always have to be a step ahead. I always tell people before you finish one meal, you should know what you're going to have for the next meal. It's good for your body, it's good psychologically because your mind knows that you're going to get food later, and so your body doesn't produce all of those stress hormones. And it's good for you to plan and to be on top of things for all of us because as life gets busy, at least that's one less thing that we have to think about later. And then we have our lean meat, seafood, and poultry. So I think people get stuck. Right now, chicken and salmon are the big ones. Of course, they're great options, and they're available everywhere in restaurants. But we have to kind of remind people there are other things in addition to those that they can eat. And here are some of them. Eggs, yogurt, and dairy, great source of protein, calcium, and vitamins for people who aren't necessarily vegans. Eggs being a great protein. Yogurt, of course, has inulin in it, and inulin helps for the blood sugar levels to stay even. So it's becoming more and more important. Great easy breakfast for people to eat on the run, a great addition, topping, a great condiment. It makes our sauces more creamy, can be used in place of cream cheese, in place of salad dressing, in place of sour cream. So yogurt is something I really recommend that people get a lot more of in their diet. And then we have all of the other different types of cheeses. After people talk about what they can eat, I think the next level is to think about what they should eat. And what we should eat, of course, fresh, seasonal, local, and organic produce as often as possible, freshly caught seafood, beans, nuts, and legumes daily, homemade fresh food as often as possible, herbs and spices for flavoring. That's an important one. Flavor, as we know it, and as a lot of people grew up cooking, flavor comes from two sources normally. And this is in restaurants and in our homes in America. It comes from sugar and it comes from fat. So anytime you want to increase the flavor, what do? You add a little more butter, you add a little more salt, you add a little more sugar. You get a better tasting, more moist, a more appealing product. If you don't want to do that, we really have to talk about spices and herbs, because spices and herbs are the secret to adding flavor and adding texture and a lot of depth to your recipes without adding unwanted fat and calories. And there's so many great things on the market now that that's really something people should educate themselves on. Healthy oils and citrus juice are as condiments. There's so many great olive oils on the market now, and argan oils, and wonderful things that people can experiment with. You need just a little bit as a condiment instead of dressings and more elaborate sauces. Also, to enjoy a wide variety of foods for optimal nutrition. Sometimes people have such a hard time figuring out a couple of meals that they can eat, that even when they do eat healthfully, they keep eating those same meals over and over again. So it's good to remind people, let nature be your guide. It's a no-brainer. Let your eyes guide you, and the more colors we have, for example, of vegetables and fruits, the more nutrients we'll be getting. Now, from what we can eat and the good foods and what we should be eating, we then have to decide what we like. And this is what I always tell my students and my clients. First, you have what you can eat. You make yourself a wonderful list, and then from that list, you want to determine what you like and what your family likes, because a lot of times that's even more difficult. So then you come up with a list like this. And you always have that list on hand, in your car or in your purse or in your briefcase or on your iPad, on your iPhone, and one on your refrigerator. This is really important because then you can quickly glance at it. You have a vegetable group, a fruit group, a grain, beans, flours, and nuts. And you can figure out very easily what you need to make a great meal, how to put it all together, and you won't be at a loss. Maybe you had a really busy day and there's no time. So by having this list, it just takes the extra work out of it for us. And there are a lot of great online resources that we can use for inspiration as well. And I'd like to talk a little bit about portion sizes. I know everybody has a great idea of what portion sizes are. We have a placemat in the gift bag that we're giving out, and it has all the little, a plate on it, and it has all of the portion sizes. So for patients and people at home who need a quick reference guide, they're not sure how much of a protein they should eat or how much vegetables, they can look at this little placemat and just keep it on hand in their kitchen and know how much to serve. There has been so many studies done and so many correlations between the amount of food that people eat and the size of plates that we use. I love plates. You know, as a cook and as someone who works in this industry, plates are to me what diamonds are to most women, and I collect them. Well, if I look back into my older plates, what I got handed down from my grandmothers and some of the older women in my family, and I look to what I buy in modern stores now, it's amazing. What we're eating as dinner plates now, these 10 to 12-inch things, are platters. They are not individual dinner plates. They're not something that we should be serving ourselves. It's way too much food for one person. But you get this big plate, you're much more likely to fill it up. And research has proven this. You eat a smaller plate, you eat less. In the 50s and the 60s, we didn't have so much obesity that we have nowadays. People were eating on smaller plates. So I use my grandmother's dishes. And for, when I want to be more trendy and use contemporary dishes, I use the salad plate or the sandwich plate or the lunch plate, whatever they call it, as our dinner plates, because that's really the size of portions that we should be eating. And it makes it much easier to go over. Even someone like myself who knows on the back of my hand what portion sizes are. I will eat more if I eat on a bigger plate. And to prove this, a friend of mine and someone who teaches at my alma mater, Cornell, is Dr. Brian Wansink. He's at the Cornell Food and Brand Lab, and he wrote this book called Mindless Eating, which is really wonderful. I highly recommend it for everybody. It's got study after study about all of the psychological effects and portion sizes and how that plays out into our daily lives. So really, smaller plates are a big way. And you can go online, there's actually a small plate movement that you can join. This is a similar example to the type of placemat that we're giving out in the gift bags today. And of course, another thing that's a new study that I just heard about, the color blue. You know, blue is a relaxing color. It's the color of the ocean. It's the color of the sky. Blue slows us down. So blue plates will also help to decrease the amount that we're eating and the speed and frequency which we're eating. So red plates, notice a lot of restaurants and a lot of food stores are decorated in red. That increases our appetite. That makes us want to eat more. Blue plates, soothing and helps us to eat less. So very simple little things we can do on a daily basis that over a while they make a difference without a ton of effort. Fresh in-season produce that are in foods, are in stores, are usually the ones that are on special. This is important too because people don't really, a lot of shoppers don't think about that. They have a hard time figuring out what's in season. Maybe they're not farmers or they're removed from the kind of, culinary agriculture community. But just go to the supermarket. I tell people, look at what's on sale and you'll know what's in season. And our bodies, of course, benefit more by eating the seasonal produce. And also meditation and, of course, exercise have been very successful in promoting weight loss. Another tip that I give people is to always make grocery lists. It sounds like a no-brainer, but it's amazing how many people don't make grocery lists. I think that if we were in a situation where we were on like a reality TV show and they took people to the grocery store and they said, okay, you have to get your week's worth of everything you're going to eat in this grocery store or you will not eat. People would be much more meticulous about making their grocery lists, I promise. But we don't because we know we can get food anywhere, so it doesn't really matter if we skip something. It gives us an excuse to eat out and to get takeout and delivery and all that fun stuff. So I tell people make the grocery list. And I use the traditional Monday through Friday work week and then the Saturday to Sunday weekend as an example. I tell people use Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday as inspiration days when deciding what to cook. Have those days be the days you talk to your family, you figure out what people like, what you want to make. If you have time to watch a food show, look at some things on the internet, read through a food magazine or a cookbook, be thinking on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday about what you want to eat. Then make your menu plan on Wednesday. Have an idea already on Wednesday what you might want to eat for the next week. Do the supermarket shopping on Thursday and Friday, and then supplement with farmers market produce, if you can, on the weekends. That gives Sunday to cook, because if people wait until Sunday to make their grocery lists, figure out what's on special, go to the store, come home, and then prep the produce and cook, they never will. So it has to be kind of really a lifestyle change. And this sounds intense, but once you do it for a week or 2 weeks, I did it when I was 15. I'm sure people are a lot smarter than I am when I was 15. They can do it very easily. It's just a matter of getting in the habit and knowing that you can allow yourself to really think about food more often. So once we're home from the grocery store, we can talk about meal planning. And again, people should have an idea, be able to jot down what they can and should eat. And I tell them to consult different sources for ideas, to make sure their portion sizes are proper, to make their grocery lists. And when they're making the list, a lot of times people go to the store and they think of the grocery store really only as a dinner option. A lot of people don't think of the grocery store as the breakfast and the snack option, but those are really important because if you get your breakfast in for the week and you get your snacks in for the week, you're really covering about 3/4 of the food that you eat. The dinner might be less important for you, but the breakfast and the lunch and the snacks are very, very important. So you want to make sure that those are part of your meal planning options. There are a lot of misconceptions, again, about food costs and the idea that healthy food is more expensive. And I think part of the reason why that's a misconception is because a lot of the health food stores carry so many wonderful upscale and specialty ingredients that you walk into a place and you look at something, it's this great artisanal product that comes from, the mountains of Basque in between France and Spain, and it's very expensive. People say, oh, this store is too expensive, I can't shop here. Well, you don't necessarily need to get that particular ingredient there. But a lot of those health food stores have their own in-house brands of organics. And those in-house brands of organics are comparable to the national brands of non-organic food. So I always tell people to look at that. Also, buying in bulk can really help. And to get the seasonal produce is always cheaper. And that's some of the ways that people can save money. I also tell people to stock up on frozen fruits and vegetables. Some of the questions that I get, sometimes people tell me we live in food deserts. We can't get a lot of the fresh produce. So what do? Use frozen. Frozen is the next best. There's not sodium or all of those things added to it, and you can still get a great variety in your diet by freezing things, even if you make a monthly shopping trip and freezing. If you're getting the majority of your foods from fruits and vegetables and healthy grains and beans and legumes, you're doing fine. A couple of ideas for people to save time. Always double the recipes and always freeze half or bring the other half to lunch for the next day. It's a no-brainer. You're doing all of the work anyway. You went to the store to get all the ingredients. Why not double it? Sometimes I even triple or quadruple. And then you have things on hand for later if you want to. Healthy marinades are very, very easy. I mentioned chicken and salmon as being kind of the go-to proteins for people who are on a healthy eating plan. Make a healthy marinade in the morning with some olive oil and some lemon juice, garlic, your favorite spices or herbs, and then pour it over whatever seafood or poultry or lean meat that you're going to be doing. Keep it in the fridge. When you come home, 20 minutes. Put it on with your frozen vegetable, and it's a really, really quick dinner. I also recommend to people to portion out individual snacks right when they get home from the grocery store. Get some little snap-size plastic bags, put your different nuts in there, make your own trail mixes, things like that. Or if you buy yogurt in bulk, put it into smaller containers and get it ready to go so that in the morning, during the busy times, you can just grab the things and go. And it'll prevent people from having to eat less healthful options during the day. And then I also recommend for people to organize their grocery lists according to store layout. 5 minutes before you go to the store, make a list. Produce, dairy, frozen, pantry, bakery, meat, seafood, poultry. That's all you have to do. Put things in order. You'll get out of the grocery store in a half an hour. Yesterday I did all the shopping for this. I think I was done in about 15 minutes. It was a new supermarket. It was a Sunday in Boston. It was really busy. But because I had the list organized that way, it saved me a lot of time. And saving time in the grocery store will make the experience a little bit less treacherous for people, and they'll want to go and it'll be easier for them to cook a little bit more. And what do patients have to gain? This is something I think we have to always continue to reinforce because people know what the risks are if they have an illness. For example, I'll use my mother as an example. Doctors were always telling her, you're going to lose your eyesight, amputation. You're going to lose your eyesight, amputation. And my mother is the kind of person who that just made her more scared and it made her not want to do more. It didn't help her to be more motivated. So I try to take it from the other aspect and say what people can gain. Better mental and physical health. Improved self-image and performance. Our society is so performance-driven. All of the reasons why a lot of times people eat poor foods is because they eat them because of their performance. They had a deadline to meet. They wanted to do more at work. They had to stay late at work. It's all about our performance. That's why we eat poorly. But if we, for a week, can work with it and make a different change, the week turns into a month. And then all of a sudden after that month, our performance is going to be better because we're eating more healthfully. But it takes that initial step of really validating ourselves and saying that we're worth it and our work is worth it to switch the mentality around because it's very easy to get caught. And I'm a victim of it often myself. You're on a deadline, traveling, and we can't make healthful things an option. Less healthcare costs, of course. New, fun, and inexpensive family and shared activities. A lot of people say because of their families, they don't have time to cook, they don't have time to do this. But the Wii game system that people have has cooking shows on it. And I think that's so funny. I see families who will play a cooking game on these Wiis, but they don't have time to cook in the real kitchen. So I tell them, we didn't have Wii when I was a kid. I didn't have any of these games really. And for me, fun was going in rummaging around in my grandfather's garden, or helping one of my family members cook, or cooking by myself, or reading a cookbook. If as people have kids, really get the kids involved. And I'm going to talk, especially in session 3, about ways that our government's doing that and ways that different agencies are doing that. But getting the kids involved is really important because the kids will like it more. They want the time with us. They don't want the time necessarily with the machine. So the more that we can give them a little bit of us, the better they'll be. And we'll be passing on these healthy traditions to them. And we'll be enabling them to learn how to enjoy the pleasures of the palate from a very early age. So now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to start doing some of my demos. I have 2 recipes for you today. The first one that I'm going to do is a hummus. Hummus is very easy to make at home. The word hummus means chickpea in Arabic, so that's why hummus is called hummus. So I've got my canned chickpeas. If you want to use dried chickpeas, even better. but I know it's like, baby steps, and if patients don't even want to cook at home yet, don't talk to them about dried beans yet. Let them start cooking and then go into dry beans. You can get some good low sodium option beans available on the market now. I'm going to add my garlic because a lot of good anti-inflammatory properties. And I'll add some tahini. Tahini is just a sesame puree. It's got a lot of protein in it. It's got a lot of niacin, and it's a wonderful ingredient, especially for vegans. It gives us that nice creaminess in our hummus. If you don't like tahini, you can't find tahini, just leave it out. You'll still have a really good chickpea puree, and that's what they do in the Mediterranean and Southern Europe very, very often. So I'm going to add my salt and pepper. You could add lemon juice in here if you like to. I'm actually using an olive oil from Chile, which is made from really wonderful picual olives. And those have a nice peppery taste in them, so I don't need the lemon juice today. You could use lime juice also, and even orange juice gives a really unique, different kind of a vibrant flavor. Now the tahini sauce gets really thick. And when you make a tahini sauce by yourself, you add the tahini, you add the citrus, it starts to get very, very thick. So you have to do something to thin it out, and that is water. A lot of times people can't make hummus at home and they always have problems. It's because they add too much olive oil. They keep adding more and more olive oil, and it just makes the hummus thicker and a little bit more grittier. So you want to add some water into it. So normally I'd let this go about 5 more minutes, but I think you guys get the gist. It's done. So it's that easy. And I always tell people, just like everything else, to make this in really large quantities, because you can leave it in your refrigerator, you can do it in the little individual things, take it to work with some crudité. We think of hummus, we always think of pita, but whenever people are on diets in the Middle East, they eat the hummus with crudité, or with romaine lettuce leaves. Romaine lettuce leaves are a little known secret. Also tabbouleh is really good and traditional with the romaine lettuce leaves. So you get more vegetables, and you don't have to worry about all of the carbohydrates. So I'm just going to plate this. And this is a good way to get kids to eat the beans too, because most kids really like hummus. You'll be amazed if you buy it how good the fresh one is. You saw how easy it is, and it's very inexpensive and much better than what you get in the packaged variety. So then I just scoop it around like this to make a nice design on the plate. Does anyone have any questions about tahini or about any of the ingredients that I'm using while we're making this? Yes? Tahini, you can use anywhere from 1 to 3 tablespoons, and it really depends. You have to eyeball it. You want this kind of consistency in the end where it's smooth and creamy and not too thick, and you also want to taste it. And I know that's not the answer you want. In the recipe book, it has the specific measurement, which I say 1/3 cup of tahini. But all tahinis are not created equal, as you'll see if you buy them in the store. And we have a lot of different ones. This is one that I got at Whole Foods. It's very creamy, very watery, so you can use a little bit more. Some of them are very, very thick, and they have the oil which settled on the top, like a peanut butter. And then when you go in and scoop it out, it's so thick that you only need a few tablespoons. So play around with it and see the flavor you like. Also, the different sesame seeds are roasted to different levels, and that's going to have an impact on the overall flavor. And then I would just garnish this with some of the crudité and serve it. For the portion size, if people are worried about the fat content or things like that, they could, tahini does have fat, but it's a good fat. So I would say to use a few tablespoons, maybe 2 tablespoons, and start out with it. That's probably going to have under the amount of fat that would, go along with diabetes guidelines and things like that. Any other questions? Yes. Tahini sauce?
Yeah.
It's in the Middle East, it's called tahina, and it has an A on the end. But in the States, we call it just tahini. Or you could say sesame puree. Okay. Not everywhere has it. It's native to the Mediterranean and the Middle East, but some places you may not be able to find it. Here in the States now, we can find it pretty much everywhere. Look for it where there would be sesame oils. If there's an Asian aisle or a Middle Eastern aisle in a store, that's where you'd want to find it. Tahini is also the base for baba ganoush. So if anybody likes baba ganoush, if you make a tahini sauce by mixing the tahini with a little bit of garlic, a little bit of lemon juice, some olive oil and water, and making just a nice, light, saucy consistency, little by little add your water and keep whipping. Then you add that to roasted eggplant, and that becomes your baba ganoush. And you can also eat the tahini alone by itself with falafel. and it's very good. Or as a dip, just instead of the hummus. It also. That's right. Very, very good fish sauce. Excellent, yes. Good reminder. So this is our hummus. And now we'll move on to the strawberry smoothie. This is really easy, a fun one. Of course, kids like it. You can make it, in big batches, keep it in the fridge, keep it in little cups. So if the kids want something or you want something and you're in a hurry. And I intentionally used frozen strawberries in this one because for the people who are in the food deserts, they'll be able to get frozen strawberries. Maybe they won't have fresh strawberries or when they're not in season. But you could use blackberries, you could use raspberries, you could use a mixture, really whatever you want. And I'm going to do about a cup of this frozen yogurt. If people want soy yogurt, soy works very, very well in this too. It doesn't have to be, I think I said frozen yogurt, I meant to say organic yogurt. But it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to have lactose. It can be any kind of yogurt that you want. You can also do a lower fat if you want. The secret, of course, to this one is the banana. You want to have a really overripe banana. Just kind of like you would make for banana bread, that's going to make the sweeter ingredients. The more ripe the bananas are, the more time that their sugars have had to develop, the less honey or the less any sweeteners you need. So it's a little trick to keep in mind for baking, and it's a good trick to keep in mind for making smoothies. No matter what kind of smoothie you make, instead of a regular sweetener, just add a really ripe banana. The other flavors are going to take over anyway, but it will still give you some sweetness. And I'm going to add just about a tablespoon of honey. Just waiting for some ice and then we'll be able to finish. Does anybody have any other questions about the smoothie or about any other things from this morning? Yes. The question was, can you use frozen fruit instead of ice? Even if you use the frozen fruit, I would still say add a little bit of ice because it makes it more frothy and it also stretches out the recipe. Part of if we had a cup of rice, we get more servings. So that's part of what we're using it for, sure. But you don't really have to thaw it. No, don't worry. Good question. Yes, sir. Sure, adding whey protein is a great idea. You could add TVP, you could add some flax seeds. You can really add a lot of things to increase the nutritional benefits of this wheat germ. Sure. So that's all we need for that one. This is one of the ones that the concession stands has on sale, so hopefully they had really ripe bananas for it. If not, ask for some honey. Any other questions? No? So I encourage you all to get one of the packets, one of the gift bags over at the Endocrine Society Hall, because I think you'll be pleased with some of the things that are in there.
Okay, who's hungry? I am. Now I'm starving. Amy, thank you so much for your wonderful demonstration.
Thank you for having me.
As Amy has mentioned, the Hormone Foundation section of the Endocrine Society booth has lots of patient education materials and has goodie bags for you for this session, filled with lots of helpful tips that Amy shared with you today. So thanks again for coming. We look forward to seeing you again at 1. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.